A builder bears his claws. Many still remember this famous slogan that appeared during the summer of 1982, and which for many years accompanied the advertisements of the firm from Franche-Comté. An opportune formula because it must be said, the beast had then retracted its claws for a long time and was experiencing serious financial difficulties to such an extent that its very existence was then in peril. Just as it became crucial to renew its range and dust off its image, Peugeot began its offensive in an unexpected way by choosing to energize a peaceful family sedan that until then had mainly stood out for acclaimed classicism, whether one considers its general aesthetics or its technical sheet. The 505 turbo injection was, however, only the first milestone of a long-term strategy aimed at conquering a new clientele, not hesitating in this case to hunt on BMW's lands. The first public appearance of the 505 in May 1979 does not overwhelm the crowds, and that's a good thing, because that is certainly not the goal sought by its designers. Presented 11 years after the 504, the new Peugeot is called to succeed it smoothly, making sure not to disconcert a clientele supposedly loyal to a certain technical conservatism. In essence, the 505 is just a modernized and partially re-engined 504. The model thus remains faithful to propulsion like the Opel Rekord, Fiat Argenta, or Ford Granada, not to mention the Mercedes W123 and BMW Series 5. Its design, the result of a co-production between the Garenne-Colombe Style Center and the Pininfarina Studio, also follows the house tradition. In this way, the 505 presents itself in the form of a very conformist 3-volume sedan, refuting both the avant-gardism of a Citroën 110 and the functional pragmatism of a Renault 20. Yet the Peugeot shares one of its engines with its two rivals. We named the 4-cylinder from Duvrin produced by the French mechanic that powers the most ambitious variants of the range. The 505T and T-Style therefore received this modern mechanic, studied at Renault with overhead camshaft, powered by a Bosch injection, and entirely made of aluminum. However, the progress in quantified performances is not spectacular. Compared to the most powerful of the 504, the 505 injection only offers 6 additional horses, and the extra weight doesn't help. These times remain ordinary. The first STI does not exceed 168 kilometers per hour at peak, and its accelerations are not very exciting either, more than 33 seconds per kilometer from a standing start. However, can we really blame this relative blandness on a car that, at its beginnings, shows no sporting pretensions? Certainly, the Peugeot brochures do mention the performances of the sharpest 505, but with a certain shyness, the marketing prefers to emphasize the tweed seats, the progress made in the field of equipment, or the proverbial robustness of the whole. In other words, nothing very exciting. We have understood that well. At that moment, as a good old-fashioned Peugeot, the brave 505 seems destined for an honest but dull career, appealing to a serious clientele. Even terribly boring, in any case, not much into frivolity. Unfortunately, while this approach worked very well in the days of the 404 injections, then 504 Ti, times have certainly changed. In the shadows, formidable competitors continue their development, and the innovations they contain risk prematurely aging the Sochaux, clinging to a philosophy whose senescence will jump out when the future Audi 100 or Renault 25 burst onto the market. On top of that, more daring than their elders, the fathers of the 80s demand driving pleasure, high performance, and are increasingly sensitive to the social promotion attached to their car. In 1975, a provincial notary was more than satisfied with the quiet austerity of his 504. This is no longer the case for the dynamic young executives who will characterize the following decade, and Peugeot can hardly ignore this change. Moreover, and broadening the focus, all levels of the range are affected by the secular puritanism characteristic of the brand, which has gradually ceased to be reassuring to become boring. Preoccupied with turbochargers applied to diesel engines, Peugeot is still a novice in the field of supercharged petrol engines, unlike Renault, which, after having imposed the turbo in Formula One, gradually transposes the principle to several levels of its catalog. relatively simple to implement. The grafting of a turbocharger is undoubtedly the most effective method for developing a truly high-performance 505 in a contained time frame. On his side, the tuner Danielson has indeed designed a kit to improve the times and road behavior of the STI, but his initiative, although marketed by the Peugeot network, based on meticulous work aimed at energizing the Ouvrain engine, has remained confidential. However, since the takeover of Chrysler's Simca and Miele in 1978, Peugeot Société Anonyme has a group whose robustness has already been amply demonstrated in competition. This is the engine designed at Simca in the late 60s to equip the unfortunate Chrysler 180, and which is then found at Talbot under the hoods of Tagora and Marina. This 2,155 Comsier 3 with a cast iron block, aluminum cylinder head, and equipped with an overhead camshaft, proves to be both solid and suitable for the adaptation of a turbocharger that Peugeot decides to subcontract to the Porsche design office, while Danielson is asked to fine-tune the chassis. The car thus has anti-roll bars of increased diameter, widened tracks, 15-inch rims, and a self-locking differential rated at 25%. The Valiant 4-cylinder receives a Bosch L-Jetronic injection and especially a Garrett T3 turbocharger blowing at 0.6 bar. Under these conditions, the maximum power reaches 150 horsepower at 5,200 RPM. Peugeot proudly claims a maximum speed of 200 kilometers per hour and a kilometer from a standing start in 29.7 seconds. Values that will be confirmed and even often exceeded by the entire specialized press. It may seem anecdotal 4 decades later, but at the Paris Motor Show in 1982, it is primarily the 505 Turbo that attracts visitors to the Peugeot stand. It's true that it lacks new features except for the restyling of the 305. A French mass-produced sedan capable of reaching 200 chronos, it's simply unprecedented. And beyond performance, the equipment of the model surprises more than one potential customer, many of whom are seduced by the physiognomy of this cheeky 505. Front spoiler, rear stand, contrasting side skirts, specific rear bumper, standard Lou rims, and 195 tires are enough to define a typing very far from the STI. In addition, the turbo injection is not content to go fast. Its road qualities are largely up to the resources of its mechanics. However, not everything is perfect, and the main criticism of the 505 thus equipped is a fuel consumption that, in comparison, would almost make the PRV V6 seem rather frugal. As early as 1984, the adoption of an RR exchanger will largely solve the problem, not without bringing 10 additional horses, while for his part, Danielson, still him, will offer a 200-horse kit, alas distributed to very few copies. In fall that year, the car was priced at 118,100 francs, or around Euro 39,000 in 2023. Its performance and price place it ahead of the Renault 25 V6 injection, 144 HP, 130,000 francs, and Citroën CX, 25 Gran Turismo injection, 138 HP, 117,300 francs. Very competitive, the Peugeot compensates for its lack of prestige and the lack of nobility of an engine that has neither the musicality nor the refinement of a 6-cylinder. But for those who care little about impressing their neighbors, the 505 Turbo is not afraid to confront a well-motored and well-driven BMW on any winding route. Mission accomplished. This variant will help to rejuvenate the brand's image while waiting for the 205 Turbo 16 and Gran Turismo injection to finish transforming it, which will relegate it to the background. Until the end of its career, and despite the arrival of an Evolution pushed to 180 horsepower, the turbo injection will gradually become commonplace. Internally competed from the fall of 1986 by a Vixo, 6 sold at the same price, then by the thunderous and much more modern 405 My 16, which will succeed it without taking up its spirit. Nowadays, more and more connoisseurs are interested in this atypical machine, in the history of its manufacture, and it now takes more than 10,000 euros to acquire a beautiful specimen, which will not be easy to find. The car has become singularly rare. Bye.